double-digit growth. Jared consults via Convergent at the CEO and board levels, including such companies as Adidas, Bank of America, and Valero. Jared is a frequent speaker, writer, and professional trainer with over 60 book chapters, publications, and presentations authored. Jared has two daughters, Rachel, age 16, and Amelia, age 14. I've had the pleasure to see Jared speak a couple of times and be prepared for a very passionate and energetic speech on the topic of the psychology of human behavior and the failure of projects. Welcome, Jared.
Good morning, and thank you for attending. And it's the first session out of the gate after the keynote. While I'm not as attractive as Joyce Lane, and there's still a decent enough crowd here, and we'll try to work it. Get the presentation going. And the topic today, if you're here to hear about just strengths, or you're here to hear about, wow, this is a great way to energize people and make them happy, and you're worried about, here's a great way to get this group going and moving forward, this probably isn't the presentation for you, okay? Because although we'd like to stay on the positive side of things and work from there, the fact of the matter is that there's a lot of different things that will undercut our project success. There's a lot of things that will keep us from being as successful as we want to be, and oftentimes those are human. Now, it's not always malicious. In fact, 65–70% of the time it rarely is, but it is about people and what we're trying to get people to do and where we're trying to get them to move towards. And so today what I want to do is inject a little bit of the people part into the Agile world, give you an understanding of how we look at the projects and project success, and to try to give you a few tips with respect to how to combat this, or how to address it, or at least just be part of it so that you understand it and use it either to your advantage or keep it from derailing you or your career or your project, if you will. I want to thank Jenny for the introduction. I really appreciate it. I do have a 25-year career. I am an industrial psychologist. Mainly what that means is I've spent way too much time in school. What I realized early on in school was that you have to get out of that frame and start talking to business people about business stuff really quickly. And so not only did I focus on that from a career perspective, but I've been owner and president of several companies. All of them have been pretty successful too. So I understand that side of the business, how to grow it, where to take it, and work on it from that vantage point. My company, Convergent, is actually the convergence of three different disciplines, if you will. We have a solid professional from the Agile world, from project management, project leadership, if you will. So we have the technical part of Agile understood and taken care of. I bring in the people part of it to try and help the organization understand what the human component is as far as projects or change or wherever we're trying to take it. Then we have a great MBA that's brought in fabulous analytics and numbers and information from the backside. The idea is that we've created a proprietary way to help organizations predict how fast projects will actually happen. So we always say, we can do it in 3 months and it'll cost $1 million, right? And it takes 6 months and $1.5 million or something like that. We actually can get to about a 90%, 95% accuracy rate with respect to prediction by taking a look at those three pieces so that we can have realistic and honest conversations with our clients to say, I know you wish it would take 3 months, here's what'll happen, here's why it'll take 4.5 months, here's a way to scale that back and to help you get it to your goals, but things are going to have to change, and sometimes that's you, and sometimes it's a lot of the things we're talking about today, which is this derailment stuff. And one or two other things, I guess. So for the agenda, I want to be really straightforward. I want to give you all are far smarter about Agile than I am, but I'll give you a quick 5–7 minutes on that. We'll talk about the overarching project, reasons projects fail. This comes from about a 20-25-year project experience standpoint. We have a database of this. We've studied this. We've taken a look at it. We'll help you understand what we see as the project failure spots. I'll then describe a human behavior model for you to understand where these failure points are and teach you a little bit about what to do with it as you move forward. So that's the goal today. Hopefully that's what you came to hear. If there's anything more, I hope I don't talk for a whole hour, so if there's anything more, I'll stop at about an hour. We'll have 10-15 minutes at the end for questions and specific things of that nature. I can also be up here afterwards. I'll give you my card for talk and do whatever it is that needs to help you out. As far as Agile goes, there's, and these are things you already know, there's continuous delivery of value. The idea is instead of doing a waterfall, like we'll just take the project and go run with it, present it at the end, let's take it into smart chunks, let's chunk the project up so that we can have mid-course correction, and we're continuously getting client feedback. Is this the right way to go? Is there something different we need to do? How do we need to get there? Does this look right? Has your business model changed? Have things evolved since then? And so it's trying to hit a moving target by instead of just trying to hit it 6 months from now, hit it 12 times every 2 weeks along that time frame, if you will. And it's open to change, and these changes are prioritized by customers. Agile started in the 90s when 17 developers got together to discuss what they call lightweight development methods, or kind of guerrilla warfare in the trenches, if you will. And they published their manifesto. And the manifesto is out there. We all know it. We've all seen it. But what it does, and I put in red the words that they talk about: individuals and interactions over process and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over just following a plan. And one of the things I'm going to point out to you today, because I'm going to try to make it salient to the group in here, which is project managers, is sometimes we're so willing to say, this is my plan, this is what I want to do with this plan, and it's already there and I've laid it out. If they would just follow the plan, everything would work well. Probably just follow the plan, or the process is great, this is the best one I've ever put together. People screw it up. Okay? Screw it up is a technical term. And the point is that what you look at here is all those words on the left are about working with people. All those are people, soft skills, social skills, group issues, if you will. And the stuff on the right is the nuts and bolts, the technical piece of it. Okay? And the Agile guys said, they were guys that held their hands up and said, this is what we're doing, this is what we believe in. And if you follow this, you should see some good results. Obviously, with the some keys to success are the mind shift. There's a mindset shift from planning and dynamic process control. It's obviously going to be greater discipline in these programs. You can continually deliver what I call incremental scopes. We continually just kind of say, where are we going next? Okay, good, we've got that. Where are we going next? We've got that. We can heighten the focus on testing as well to make sure that instead of discussing what do you want, we can say, here's what you got, what do you think? What do we need to do differently? How does that work for you? Where does that go? And how does that get there? And I often say that all the time. It's much easier to edit something than it is to kind of create something from scratch. And we so often want to make sure that the project's perfect, or everything's in mind before we let anyone see it, because we're so afraid of making mistakes, or to look silly, or to not be part of the program, that we lay those deliveries down, and when it comes out, we end up showing a little less robustness than what we were looking for, and perhaps the client doesn't even get what they wanted as well. So for us, there's 6 required behaviors for success in this world. There's a shift from command and control. There's a commitment to heightened transparency, obviously. Information sharing, not hoarding. Looking for the true team, if you will, and collaboration. We also need debate and discussions, and clearly at the end of this, there's flexibility, which is I'm going to put what I've got done out on the table. Let's take a look at it. Let's knock it around. Let's make sure it's the right thing before we move forward. Okay. We've been working in the Agile space for about 25 years. One of my first, it's interesting, one of my first projects was working with Capital One, and that was before they were a big company. They were just a small group trying to start a credit card business, and they had IT people that no one ever spoke to, and they put them in a little closet, not a closet, but they put them in a room somewhere, and They never came out, no one ever, and they said, we want to start getting our IT people integrated with the business. And so we were trying to do Agile basically at the very beginning before it was really cool. And we've been studying it, both myself, my two partners from their work and their experiences. We've been studying this for 20, 25 years now. And for us, the number one reason Agile adoption fails people is to screw it up. And again, it's not malicious necessarily, it's not in a way, it's not purposeful, but people will screw up your best laid plans. Okay, maybe you have children, you know that happens, right? Every once in a while. Well, sometimes working with your clients or working with people in the organization, it's not much different than working with children. And things happen, things go awry, the world changes, the directions take a turn, and people will screw these things up. But from our vantage point, we have 7 different things that we've seen really derail projects. One of them is the empire building, okay? And this is, if you think of that, it's like command and control. I'm in charge, there's people below me, I'm doing this, there's people down here to do that. And that empire building, that information hoarding, the turf wars, all of those have to do with the inability of the organization to move from a command and control aspect into more of a team-focused, collaborative work group that's willing to do things together and get where they need to get. Lack of transparency. I don't want people to know it. Let me make it perfect before I show you. Okay? And that need to make it perfect because I don't want to look bad in front of you is one of those things that can really get in the way of your effectiveness. There's clear passive aggressiveness or conflict avoidance because if you think about it, every project you do, the company is currently doing this or going in one direction, and you're asking them to do something different, right? Like we're managing a project. The project isn't, let's make sure everyone does things the exact same way we've always done it. Most every project you're involved in has some form of change. And when there's a change dynamic here, there's 3 things that can happen. The person can try and move over to where the change is. The company can try to pull them over, or the person can avoid it. From our vantage point, all 3 are energy expenditures, right? And the first 2 can kind of help a lot. Third one doesn't help at all, and that's where this passive aggressiveness or conflict avoidance can come up and can get in the way. So I know you want me to do this, I know it sounds good, I like kind of what I'm doing, and I'm going to stick to it, okay? Lack of flexibility, and then also what we call the bonus behavior is viewing quality as an add-on, not something that is built into the process. So we'll fix it, and then at the end we'll put quality on it instead of quality being the main focus of that. Is there any questions there? Does anyone have any they want to add, I guess? Throw it out, see how loud you can shout. Because why is it called bonus behavior is the question. It's because the failure of Agile or people running Agile is they think of quality at the end. They think, we'll put quality on it right at the end, so that's what we call bonus behavior, instead of thinking of quality as the integrated piece across the entire project. So if you think of quality as, oh, we'll pack something together and then put quality in, yeah, that's what we're talking about. Good question. So what's really going on when we're working through these processes? What's really happening? And from our vantage point, there's 3 things that are required when we're changing, okay? And again, project management, we're kind of doing this, we're going to start doing that. I consider that change. And when I look at organizations, virtually everything I see is change. And with every new technique or approach or tool or process or thing you're laying out, there's people involved. And when you have people involved, there's 3 or 4 things that person is holding on to, okay? They're unique, right? And one of those things is, where's their heart? Where do they want to go? What do they want to be? What are they motivated by at work on a day-to-day basis? There's also their characteristics. What do they do? How do they like to work? How do they approach the workplace? And the third thing is how they solve problems and make decisions and use their judgment. And what you're doing every time, or we are doing every time we're moving a change program, is we're messing with those things with that person. Okay? Maybe, and when we're messing with those things, people make those choices to move one way or the other. And so what we do is we link the whole person to specific change and performance outcomes. We've been doing it for over 20 years, and so we have a 500,000 person database that we have these data on. We know what's in people's hearts and what they want to do on a day-to-day basis and how they solve problems and make decisions. This includes 25,000 direct level and above, 20,000 project managers, 25,000 in the IT sector. And we understand when our clients say we want to move people to this, we understand what that entails. We can look at our data and say, here's the 5 or 6 things you're going to hit on people's hearts. And here's what you're going to change from a behavioral standpoint. Here's how you're going to solve problems differently. And these are things that you're going to change for those individuals that are in those roles right now. And these things need to occur, and we need to think about them and work on those so that we can be more efficient and better at what we're trying to do. And so it looks something like this, okay? And I'm sorry about my drawing. This is my artistic capacities, if you will. But let's take the Agile aspirational values, okay? And so for every single one of you, if you think about these aspirational values, there's what, 12 of them, I think. You as an individual look at those aspirational values. And on each one of them you say, is it something I believe in, truly? The things it's asking me to do, is that something I really want to do? So is it something I truly believe in? Am I a command and control person, or do I really believe in collaboration among people? Right? I mean, that's a simple thing. Some of us really kind of think, if only people would follow my lead because I'm higher on an org chart, everything would be simpler, right? And some of us think, no, let's be collaborative, let's pull people together and do that. That's a value, and we can look at that. And then we can take a look at their behaviors, if you will. Some of the behaviors here are, we will have direct conflict, we will have direct and sometimes conflicted conversations with each other. That's hard for some people. I don't like to have conversations with others and knock heads. And so I don't like to do that. Okay? And then solving problems, making decisions. We're doing collaboration. We're thinking about others. We're discussing how that happens. And so what happens is, and you'll see the black lines running through, what happens is me as the leader, or the leader of your executive sponsor, is going to look at this stuff and say, these 3 things matter a lot, these 3 kind of, these 3 not at all, because of what's inside of them. And so the things they care about, the things they matter, what do you think they do with those? They talk about them. They tell everybody about them. Now what about the things they don't care about? They don't get talked about very often, right? So I'm an employee of that, now I'm management in the middle, and I'm taking a look and I'm saying this stuff and saying, this guy writes my paycheck, this guy does this, that, and the other. He believes in 1, 2, A, B, and C. So I better talk about 1, 2, A, B, and C as well, because that's a pass-through. But I really don't care much about C, and I don't really care much about 2, so I'll just kind of mention them, but I won't really talk about them too much. That's who I am. And then those red lines, that's energy going away from where you're trying to get people to move to. And then it keeps going down. So this is like those little circles when you're a little kid and you start like and say, the dolphin is gray and it likes water. And then it gets around to the other end and it's like, the Chiefs are the best football team in the country or something like that. And you don't know, how did it get there? By people taking a look at, where are we trying to go? Which parts of that do I care about? And therefore, those are the things I'm going to talk about, and the other things I'm not. And then my people see that, and they react too. Their people see that, and they react too. It's a wonder we can get anything done. It's a wonder any change ever occurs. Think about this. Even your children know this. When mommy's home, which rules do I follow? When daddy's home, which rules do I follow? And they know those things, back and forth. And they know them. Yeah, you live at my house, don't you? Yeah. But, and they get which things they're supposed to look at and which things they're supposed to care about. And your employers and your employees and the people you're trying to change are doing the exact same thing. And what we try to do is measure that stuff along the way so that we know up front how much black line do we have working for us and how much red arrow do we have working against us. Okay? And it's as simple as that. And so you could leave here today right now and kind of think how much black arrow and how much red that you kind of try and hack through it. It's pretty hard, but you can get better at it. And we tend to use more science than just kind of hacking through it. But that's the gist of what's going on with your projects. And is it about the process? Did I say anything about your process is good? Or the tool you're going to use is the right tool or the wrong tool or something like that. And so you guys, I think you're going to be pretty good at understanding which ones of those things are the good ones or the right ones or things of that nature. But people will mess these things up. And it's not purposeful. They're not angry. I'm not going to do that because I don't like that. So I mean, that can happen from time to time. This is about what's in them. What do they care about? Okay. And so you saw the pentagram earlier, that's how we think of people as well. Okay, and so there's the so every person on a project or every person whose job you're impacting from a change perspective, there's 5 or 6 pieces to it. Did I get it? Oh, there we go. Okay. And the first piece is that technical fit experience on the top left. What do they know? Do they have the tools? Do they have that? And this is the thing we always think about. Well, in our project, because we're implementing this off, people will need training. And as long as we train them on exactly what to do, they'll know how to do it, they'll do it, right? But it is a part of that, and it is an interesting part of that. The technical skills we don't deal with a whole lot because we assume that a lot of organizations know how to do that, or that that's a standard way that you would address things. But we do touch those other 4 pieces, which is really what I talked about earlier. The blue piece, what's in my heart, what do I care about on a day-to-day basis? The green and red piece. The green piece is an interesting one because it talks about what are the things I do to help myself get there. And the red piece is what we're going to focus on most of our time today, because that has to do with what am I doing to screw myself up. And it just so happens that when people are under normal conditions of certainty, and they're working day to day, they don't typically show these kind of behaviors. But when we put people in stressful situations of uncertainty or novel solutions, so what would that be? Today you're doing this, tomorrow you're doing that. We see these characteristics. We see these characteristics because people don't know how to act. They don't know how to respond. People do that to me all the time because the whole psychologist and PhD, oh my God, I'm talking to, and they start showing weird behaviors just because they think that I'm reading them or doing some sort of voodoo on them or some sort of thing like that. It's like, no, come on, let's just have a conversation. But people worry about that all the time. And for you, it's going to be the exact same because you're asking people to stop doing this and start doing that. And when you do that, that's stressful. It's not how I've done my job. And so oftentimes in change scenarios, that 20-year employee who they hold up as the exemplar. This is the best employee we have. Why is that employee the best? Because they've done this the same way every single time for days and days and days, and they know how to do it. And all of a sudden, after 20 years, we're going to say, you're not doing that anymore, do this. But the company says you need to make them your pilot participant. They'll be your leaders. They'll help you get this change moved forward. What we've done is taken the most steadfast, staunch person in that current role and tried to force them to change and do something different. And so for 20 years, we haven't seen these negative behaviors that come out, and all of a sudden they start coming out. Because now we're changing the game. The way they show up, the processes they go through, the things they work through, those are going to change on a daily basis, and that's scary to that person, and they'll start showing some cracks in the facade, if you will. Then finally, how are we solving the yellow? Kind of hard to read, but how are we solving problems, making decisions? And we look at combinations of this within a person as well. So from a blue perspective, if I care about money, from a green perspective, I ought to try and work hard, right? Or if a blue part, I care about networking and feeling part of people. On the green part, I probably ought to be nice when I talk to people instead of me. Okay? And we start looking for connections between this and consistency within a person as they go up and down that line to try and figure out where are they going to show stress and pressure in this change process? What's that going to look like? And so, and when we look at those changes, we can look at them in this scenario. And this would be, say, we're trying to get people to become better customer service reps, if you will. The person on the left is aligned, okay? They care for others. In their heart, they care about customer service. which is cool. Then when they act or talk to people, they're actually nice. People like them, which is another good going on there. And then third, when things go bad, they don't say, I'm not helping you anymore, I'm just working for myself. They continue to think about helping and doing things like that. And then the fourth piece is they understand politics and how to make decisions. So when they're making decisions, they think, how's Susie going to like this? How's Fred going to like this? How's Bob going to like this? And how do I interact and make those things come together? Personal rights not aligned, okay? They focus on their own goals, starting on what's in it for me. We've heard that, right? And then when they are outgoing, and this is a double-decker because they're out there talking a lot, but when they do, it's what I care about, my opinions, I'm right, you're wrong. And so that's the water cooler buster, right? Person shows up and injects their opinion into the scenario, and everyone's kind of like, oh, I gotta go back to work. And they're always injecting themselves into that, and they don't move from their own rules and procedures. What I like to do is what I care about, and I ain't moving. That person has difficulty. They have to expend energy every day to try to be good at customer service. And if you're changing things up on people, it's going to be difficult for them to do things differently, and they're going to have to figure out what energy they need to spend differently and what that looks like. And so for us, we tend to take people, and for organizations, we can do a lot of different things. One of the things we look at really quickly, like a broad brushstroke, is we look at propensity for change and propensity for collaboration to try and figure out which of these people is even going to be open to what we're trying to do. Just the concept of we're going to do it differently this year than we have last year. You look at the bottom right, and you can see we can put together any two combinations of scales here. So safety orientation with attention to detail. You want your safety-oriented people who care about safety to pay attention to details, right? Because oops doesn't work well in safety projects. For customer focus, we want them to be able to handle stressful scenarios. So my customers are angry at me, am I okay with that? Can I deal with that? If we're trying to look for, are they going to be a good manager or moving into a managerial role? Are they performance-oriented? Are they willing to address performance concerns and worry about people? So the first things we do is we start thinking about what are the changes we're going to make in this organization. We clearly lean on scientific evidence and assessments and measurement and things like that to help us get to this. But you can certainly take a look at the groups you're working with and kind of figure this out after 1 or 2 meetings. Will it be as scientific? Probably not. Is it going to be as accurate? No. But is it going to start getting you to thinking about at least those outliers, those people on the edges? This one really will kind of groove with what we're trying to do, and these people maybe not so much. Absolutely. And that's what we try to do going in. This is focusing on the people side of projects and trying to get those projects moving forward in a way that makes sense. As far as people explained, if you will, what's the commonality between all these people? Anyone remember Howard Dean? I have a stream speech run for president. Bernie Evers of WorldCom, or Jimmy Carter, the president, just filling in on. All of these people, from a commonality perspective, had a characteristic that derailed their careers. All those people failed. Under stress and pressure, Howard Dean started screaming like a lunatic and lost his chance to become president of the United States. Richard Nixon was skeptical of everybody. So much so that he was looking at his own people doing nasty things to his own people and things like that. George Bush, Jimmy Carter down the bottom, U.S. president, diligent to the bone. He was so ingrained in every single decision that decisions couldn't get made. He bottlenecked his entire presidency. You look at Jeffrey Skilling, who was like, we can't get back here. We're okay. We're kind of on the edge of the law. Yeah, it's a little fuzzy. Let's do it. Okay? All these people had a characteristic that ended up killing their careers in one way, shape, or form. The derailment research is really important here because it helps us understand that people who have difficulties with these changing environments, people who have difficulties moving forward, don't learn from their mistakes. They're not always accountable. Oftentimes they're very self-centered. And they're not inspiring others to build talents. There's a lot of internal CVE stuff that's going on here that's going to get in the way of their effectiveness on a day-to-day basis. So derailment, this is what I talked about from a derailment standpoint, is derailers are the tendency to engage in a particular set of behaviors that can limit or undermine your effectiveness. These often fall under the times of stress and pressure, and they can result from positive characteristics taken to an extreme. I like to talk so much that I don't listen to people. The talk part isn't bad, but not listening is. I have self-confidence so much that I look arrogant and kind of mean and kind of look at me and not you kind of stuff. I pay attention to details, and some of us will have this fault. I pay attention to details so much that I can't get beyond them, and I can't move forward unless I think I have all of those details in one spot. And although you want to think that this is everyone else we're talking about, we all have this stuff. And every one of us who responds to stress and pressure in all the situations, there's one, two, maybe three of these things that get in the way of your effectiveness. I try not to be a judge and jury, but try to let people understand they will. Let's figure them out so we can address them. So we know what they are up front, we can then at least address that as we move forward in the project and make sure things happen the way we want. So again, a lot of times we have, and this is that green-red on the pentagram I showed you earlier, and the green piece is those are normal positive characteristics that typically show up under day-to-day characteristics and work in stress-free conditions versus these characteristics that happen under stress, situations of uncertainty, or when the person doesn't have the energy to pay attention. Now these derailers are kind of a funny spot as well because nowadays people are good at interviewing, right? So they don't see interviews as a stressful scenario. So these things are tough to pick up in an interview. They're tough to look at until the person's in the scenario. We've been lucky enough or fortunate enough to develop an assessment that can proactively look at this stuff. So before we've seen their behavior, to understand, here's what they're going to do. And we're 95% sure that's probably what's going to happen. And therefore we have a good understanding of where it's going to go. But these are hard to get to unless you see them. And remember Rose, the person who's been in the job for 20 years? We don't see her in stress ever because the job's the same. She's in that box and she's happy. We move her out, all of a sudden this stuff comes up. So yeah, again, strong behaviors can become derailers when taken too far. So enthusiastic people can become excitable and volatile. Careful people can become so cautious they can't make decisions. Questioning people who are just like, why are we doing this? What's going on? Can become passive aggressive or passive resistant, if you will. Challenging people can become mischievous. I'm not going to do it. Let's see if they can make me. That kind of thing. Curious and creative people can become eccentric. Wow, that guy's got all this stuff coming out of his head. He's always talking about these ideas. I never see anything get accomplished. Nothing ever gets done. It's just idea after idea after idea ad nauseum. Devoted, compliant people can be so pleasing they're unwilling to confront and unwilling to push back and push against the organization. And so again, all of us would say, I love an enthusiastic person, right? And all of us would say, I'd like a confident person, or someone who's willing to be expressive and curious and conscientious. But when they get taken to an extreme, and they do under stressful conditions because we hunker down, we worry about what we're trying to do, we stay in that mode, and it slows them down and keeps them from being effective. And we're not effective 3 different ways, okay? And this is some kind of old research, and as we were looking at our assessment and measuring what we were trying to do, we saw that some scales kind of hung together, if you will. And from a hung together standpoint, we looked at the past research to try and figure out where it was coming from. And so we started, as psychologists, we started with Freud, but he was too busy talking about sex, so we moved on from him, and then a couple of other people. We finally got to this lady named Karen Horney. Some people call her Karen Horney, I call her Karen Horney. But anyway, what she said was, when we're in interpersonal interactions with other people, so, like at work, and we have to get work done, there's other people around, there's 3 characteristic ways that we can cause difficulty in relationships. One of them is we can move away from people or put a wall up. And the idea behind that is that either we're putting a wall up to keep people out, or they're putting a wall up because of what we're doing and they're trying to get away from us. But anyway, we're causing a barrier between us and other people. So excitable. If I'm running around like, wah! people are going to be like, oh, don't talk to Jared today. He's in that mood, Or if I'm saying, they're bad, the skeptical piece, that sucks, this isn't any good, that's no good, that's bad, people are going to say, we're never going to get anything accomplished if all we hear is the negative without the positive. Or the cautious would be, I'm not ready to let it go. I need one more piece of data before I move forward. This could be some of you. I need one more thing in the process to perfect it before I go forward. Give me a day to tweak it. We're 96% there. We're 98% there. That cautiousness is putting up a barrier between that project getting going, which is slowing down all the other people that are working with you. Reserve people will literally close their doors and insulate themselves and focus on their own behavior, their own work, not others. And if you're a leader, that's particularly hard because under stress, they need to be out front. They need to be talking about this and getting people enthused about it and working from there. Finding usually is kind of passive aggressive. It's a quiet door, it's a quiet barrier, but it's like, so will you work on this and do the things we need you to do? Oh, but my fingers are crossed behind my back, so I'm really not. I'm just going to tell you I am, but behind the scenes, I'm really not going to do it. The second way people get and react under stressful conditions is they move against other people. This is kind of forward of them. This is pushing them. This is kind of dominant. This is taking one of their characteristics to an extreme, if you will. So the bold pieces is, I can do anything, we'll finish in a week, when it's really 6 weeks of work. And the mission of this is, I'm not following your rules, I'm not doing your thing, you come find me if you're going to be bold enough to stop me from doing what I've always done. Colorful are those talkative ones that never listen, and imaginative, they have great ideas, so as you keep talking about, here's our process, here's where we want to go. It would be cool if we did this or that, and they start hijacking your process and throwing out other ideas just to throw them out versus that they really think that they may work. And finally, the third group is what we call moving towards, which is ingratiating themselves to the rules and processes or their bosses in a way that's kind of annoying, if you will. So the diligent is perfectionist. Okay? There's a process, people. So hopefully none of you ever did this, but as a project manager who's rolling out a project, come on, there's a process. We all agree. See, it's on the chart. Just follow the process. And that's a moving towards trying to bring people to the process and pulling to it. And the other one would be, we have to do this. He said so. We have to do this because she said so. She's our executive person sponsor, so we've got to do it, right? And that's hoping that people will just follow along because somebody somewhere on some memo and some email and some scenario said, yeah, we should probably do this. But remember, that person's either talking or not about it, and it either matters to them or not. So if that leader is hijacked it, and you're out there trying to do that, then it's going to happen. It's not going to help you out. The other part of beautiful that's really difficult is that some of these people become so ingrained in wanting to please their bosses that they lose their voice. Okay, so the boss will go around, we're going to do this change thing. Fred, what do you think? Yeah, I'm on board. Susan, what do you think? Yeah, got it. Bob, I'm confused on a couple things, but I think I'm okay. And then the next one, whatever you say, boss, let's go. Okay, you just lost your voice, but you're part of the organization. No one knows whether you are involved or caring about it or working on it or not. And I kind of just defined all those and worked through them for you. I threw this up here as well. You can have the slides if you want. Just let me know at the end of this, and I'll be glad to ship them to you. I think Jenny said she's trying to collect everyone's presentation, so I don't know if it's going in some book or whatever, but you can have these. But basically what I just described is on this page as well, so let's do that. And these are scientifically studied for a long time. These are the main 11 ways that people will either that your leader can hijack your project. You can hijack your own project and use it for some level of failure. For those people you're trying to change, and those people whose job you're impacting by doing this thing are going to impact it as well. Now, and just because I said those project managers are probably thinking, well, my projects, it's never me, it's always just the executive sponsor that derails mine. Otherwise, that'd be great. Sorry, you're not off the hook, okay? Don't be, I've seen, I've probably given feedback on 10,000 people on this thing, and I've seen probably 200,000 of these from a data analytics standpoint. Everybody has 2 or 3 scores sticking up or sticking out, or things that at some point in time in their career is likely negatively impacted them and impacted them in a way that caused either the project not to get as far ahead as they wanted, or caused themselves not to get as far ahead as they wanted as well. So these things are real. They're inside of you. It's kind of like, on average, people have 2.3 kids. On average, you have 2.3 of these different characteristics, and they're just there. So I'm not a judge or jury, and you shouldn't be either. But what you should be is realistic and willing to say, I know that these are my 2 or 3 places. So when I'm in this scenario, when I'm doing these things, here's what I'm going to do to ensure that I don't derail or implode this thing, or keep it from the effectiveness that I hope it serves. Have I scared anyone yet? Didn't mean to. This isn't scare tactics. I mean, this is life. I mean, this is reality. And these are things that I hope what you're thinking about is that you're bumping your head up against, why hasn't my project been as effective as I wanted it to be? Or why is it that every time we get to implementation, these people screw it up? And what I've tried to do is give you an understanding of it. It's not malicious. It's not personal. They're not out to get you, like, some people, but not a lot of them. And that's not really where they're going. But what it is about it's about people clinging to their world and not understanding this change that we're asking them to do, and how it's either similar to what they've done in the past and not that different, or how it is very different, but here's how we're going to get through it together. Okay? Because it's like, because I don't think they purposely are going to want to try and derail it, but maybe they don't know how not to. Maybe because these things are automatic, they're kind of inside of us and they happen. Dave Gottlieb, some of you are book readers, I know, so you're writing down this stuff. Dave Gottlieb and Peter Kyra, they're good guys. I've known them for 30 years now, I guess. And they wrote a book called Why CEOs Fail. It basically takes these 11 derailers that we just talked about and blows them up and talks about them kind of bigger. If you're a booker, if you're a bookie kind of person, when you do that, go to their book and take a look at it. It's not a bad read, it's pretty quick and it works through it. But what I wonder is as you look through those derailers, and you heard me discuss those derailers, 2 or 3 things that I think you should really leave this room thinking about, which is one, when are my higher moderate risk derailers most likely to show up? Okay? So you can think about your own projects, you can think about the things you've gone through, and you can think about it and say, where is it that my derailers usually show up? Is it project initiation because I don't know the people in the room and I'm not sure how to react yet? Don't have all the politics down? Is it that midpoint in the project where you're kind of having above heads and have legitimate conversations with people, and that's kind of scary to me? Is it when you're implementing or that first release because you're scared that other people might not like it or might not be right or might not be the right place? So personally, for you, I want you to think about your high risk derailers and where they're most likely to show up and what they'll look like and things of that nature. And then the second thing I want you to think about is the other side of this. Because so far, a lot of you might have been thinking of yourself personally in this, but you as a person, you as a project manager, you as an Agile consultant, whatever your title is, are impacting other people. And your stress impacts others. Remember when I said if I'm running around like this, people are like, yeah, don't talk to Gary today, he's hitting one of those moves, watch out for him. You are impacting people, so the places where you're causing stress, you're alerting other people to it as well. And like, whoa, they're kind of stressed out about this. What am I supposed to do? Maybe I should be too. And now all of a sudden you're causing reticence in a lot of people because of that one spot. You have a spot in your repertoire that you're weak link. I'll guarantee if you think about that weak link spot, and you're rolling projects and you're doing stuff, one of those 11 things is probably getting in your way. And if it's one of those 11 things, you got to think about when I do that stuff, what's the other person thinking? What are they going? How am I impacting them? What does that look like? Third thing is which derailers, when exhibited by others, bother you the most? And this is about your clients. People screwing it up. When they're screwing it up, which kind of screw up is the worst one for me? Which one is the one that bothers me the most because it's hard to jump, it's either hard to overcome, it's hard to get around, it's hard to move beyond, whatever those questions are, it's one of those things, and you can start thinking about that. If you think about it, you can start planning how can I mitigate it. How can I make this not impact me the way that it usually does? When I'm having this discussion with people, is it the passive aggressive person that says, and then doesn't do it? Is that one that drives you nuts at night? Is it the people who don't follow process and just say, I'm not going to do it? Is it the leaders who are unwilling to have tough conversations with their employees or anything like that? I don't know where it is. Figure that one out and look at it. And then finally, the one thing I do try and help people, again, this isn't really self-help, I'm not great at that kind of stuff. But the one thing that I do try to help people understand as I'm coaching executives all the time is right now people see the difference between what they're doing and what you're asking them to do is a very big difference. And they're doing that in a linear fashion. Here's the activity I'm doing today, here's the activity I'm doing tomorrow. And those are two different things, and there's a ton of change. But if you can get them out of that linear experience and take 5 or 6 other things they've done and help them understand, really, this is part of this, and you've already done that. And it's also a little bit of this, and you've done that too. And it's some chunk of this, and you were great at that. But as you start making that jump look smaller and smaller because they've done a few experiences, or they've done a few things across the years that have brought them closer to that, there's a much better chance for you to kind of get them to think, this isn't as big of a jump as I thought. Maybe it's a little smaller one. The beauty of Agile is it gives us 2-week kind of runs at it, 2-week sprints to kind of say, hey, how about we go? Okay, this time we've got another chance for this and another place to get to and another thing to do. And it's so different than the one we just did. It's just a new technology, or it's a new stream, or it's a new piece, if you will. And so making those changes look smaller and smaller, thinking consciously, how can I make that change look smaller and smaller? Because a piece is going to be really important to you if you're trying to do this on your own or work through this stuff on your own. What if my project is derailing? And virtually every project at some point in time will have a crud moment, right? I mean, rarely do they go as planned. Realize that at any one time, at least 50% of your managers are causing the most stress in their employees' lives. Okay? And so we often look at those employees and look at them and think about what they need to do. But remember that leader on that stupid picture, and that leader either likes and doesn't like, or values and doesn't value some of the things that I'm trying to get across. You got to have that conversation with them folks. And the better you can focus on a third party in the room, here's the manifest, here's the 12 principles of Agile, here's this, and these pieces seem to be important to you, and these pieces seem not to be. The more you can have that conversation, and the more you can be honest and straightforward, the better off you're going to be, because they're causing stress. And you're causing stress, because if the boss says, do A, B, and C, but not D, because I don't really give a crap about it, and you're saying, A, B, C, and D is the most important part. That's stress to those people that we're trying to change, we're trying to make new. And the more you know that, the more you have that conversation up front, the better off you can be. And the more you can point to, remember we agreed to this thing, where are we, versus, I'm going to talk to you and tell you what to do, the better off you're going to be. More opportunity you'll have for success. Second thing that we do in a lot of organizations, well, basically most organizations that we deal with, is we talk about the email stuff up front. As we bring a team of people in together that we're working with, we talk about actively email. Now, with us, we've actually measured them, and we have assessment data, and we can talk about it in an analytical sense, if you will. But it's not difficult for people, if you're willing to have these conversations, to be able to say, look, there's going to be stress here. What are the 5 biggest stress points that are going to come up in this project? Okay, if we have those 5 stress points, who are the 3 people in the organization that are going to cause the most stress and exacerbate this in some way, shape, or form? Okay, when that scenario comes up, there's 4 ways we can kind of address this and work on that. But instead of thinking of it as this kind of secret that the PM has or the Agile consultant has, and I keep it in my back pocket, I read, this is where I'm not that psychologist. And I honestly know to tell people, talk to those people about this and help them understand here are the stress points. We know that to be true. You can lean on your own experience if you want to work off of that. And here's what we're going to do about it. So that when they come up, and the person's like, whoa, I'm stressed out. It's like, remember we talked about this. Oh, that's right. And do we have a plan? We do kind of have a plan. okay, let's work that plan. And now all of a sudden, it's not this major aha that's going to derail your career, your project. It becomes a small thing. We touched on this, and now we have to do the things we said we're going to do and work from there. When people or individuals are causing stress or pressure or derailing their project, I highly suggest you use questions, not accusations. You're being leisurely, probably is the way to start a conversation. So bring some people out. They'll go into fight or flight mode, and that's no fun. And so, but hey, this part of the project seems to be causing you a little bit of stress, or a lot of stress. You feeling it? Because it seems to be showing you. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. When you're doing that thing, and that's the second thing I'll say, when you're doing that thing, how do you think it impacts Sue and Fred and Bob down the street? Do you think they want to kind of follow along as well? Because you're kind of impacting more than just you. So when I talk to people, it's not accusations, it's just questions, which are, hey, this part seems to be a little stressful for you, or you seem to be showing some stress. What's going on? And then the second piece is, when you do that stuff, who's an impact? Because people rarely think about their characteristics of how they impact other people, but it's a huge piece to this puzzle to make sure that you understand that. And then the last piece is you can become kind of quasi-psychologist, if you will, and at the very least, take a look at the type of derailer you're dealing with, whether it's the moving away. Remember, I'm creating a wall between me and others, or they're creating walls, or is it moving towards, do I have it, or against, do I have aggressive people that are butt heads with me, or is it moving towards, which is, I personally lean so much on my process or my executive sponsor that I'm not getting the amount of success that I can get to. And then from there, you can work on that. But moving against, there's just so much personality coming out. You try and get them to stop it, you slow it down. The other side of it is, with moving away, is you want them to get out of their shell and not create that wall. So you want them to do something more than what they've been doing in the past to effectively get there. And then from our vantage point, what we do when we go into organizations, again, when we have data on these organizations or places and things of that nature, we'll take a look at, perhaps we're doing an organization-wide look at the organization. We're going to implement a new software across the whole place. We'll take a look at the leadership. We'll take a look at the people in those departments and figure out which of these people are going to come on board quicker versus not. Okay, we plan projects around this. I highly suggest you do the same. So I know they want Susie, who's been in the job for 20 years, to be your lead pilot participant. She's probably not the right person. Someone else in that organization is. And that's an important piece, or some department. Sales is much more hip on this than HR. Okay, or administration is going to be really slow, but the R&D group really wants this. Okay, and so there's all that stuff going on, and we actually take a look internally at the organization to figure out, where do we start? Which group do we use as a pilot participant? Within that group, who do we use as pilot participants? Because I'm setting myself up for success. Who do I get on my team that I'm going to show the 2-week sprints to get their feedback, because they're going to be leaders of this, they're going to carry it forward. Chance is, the focus is it's not always the same person that's their current top leaders. We want to know that. We want to be straightforward and truthful about it. And said, oh, you got a guy? Okay, great. We'll use that. Yeah, okay. Now, the minute you don't vet who your pilot is, or who your first groups are, or early adopters are, is the first time you're setting yourself up for failure. And that is on your shoulders. It's not on anyone else's. Then within a team, we may look at the pilot and training participants, and those group up at the top right that kind of ready, what's next, let's do it. Those are the first people we get into the pilot, because we want them moving forward, because your projects are going to fall into 30-30-30, okay? This is a rule we talk about a lot, but in any change initiative, 30% of people are going to love it, 30% are going to be somewhat on the fence, so they like one aspect or a couple pieces of it, but they're not sure about the rest. 30% are going to hate it no matter what. So we might as well get that first 30% going, get a few successes out of them, get an organization to say, look, we've got new people, they're doing good things, we like them, and the organization starts patting them on the back, and then now all of a sudden that middle group, that lagger group, is going to say, ooh, I want some of that attention love. How do I get that love? You start doing these things. Start going this way. And then once you get there, you now got 60-65% of the organization kind of moving forward. And then the third piece is that those trailers are going to kind of figure out, I need to get on this bus because my rooted way or my rugged way isn't working the way I really want it to anymore, and I need to do something different about it. Then what we also do a whole bunch of, and this goes all the way back to your original, where are the places we're going to derail, right? Because I just asked you, if you're going to step up your game anyway, at the very least, think about, in this project, where are the places I'm likely to derail? Where's the big stress points? Okay? And then we measure it. So on every 2-week sprint, every 2 weeks, at the end of that, we're measuring it. And sometimes we measure at the team level, sometimes we measure at the individual level, but whatever we're measuring are the things that we were just talking about to get there, and we want to keep backsliding from happening as well. So this happens out there with your customer too, the person who's now using your software, using your stuff. We're going to ask them and ask their peers which one of them are leading this thing and kind of lagging and following and why. And we're going to figure that stuff out and get ahead of that curve, because backsliding happens so too much, and we don't want to watch backslides at all. So control that back end side by just being up front. So if there's any chance that we do is, before you have people invested, before they put their time and energy and everything else into this thing, kind of like a new employee. You know how it's easier to give a new employee who's only been there a couple days feedback, but a person who's been there 30 years is kind of hard? That's because you're invested. So before you get too invested in your project or the people that you're working with or the things, have these hard conversations, because they're not as hard then. And then track it as if it's just kind of normal. This is part of who we are, because we identified this as a way to kind of lose success and not be as effective as we once thought we were. And getting the feedback so that we can repeat and elevate that first group, the pilot participants and the laggers, get that moving even quicker towards the end, because the faster you can get adoption out of 30 to 60% of the group, the faster you're going to get adoption out of at least 90-95% of the group as well. Just real quick, we all have potential vulnerabilities. Awareness is what I'm talking about today. Just being truthful and honest with yourself and your client about what's going on and what's happening. Okay, and you could put patches on your jacket, and say, well, my 10 years of project management experience, here's the 5 things that are going to derail this project, and we talk about that. Personally glad that you did, but having some level of awareness is important. And then manage the derailers and the stress levels by recognizing the triggers and really inviting feedback into the process. And that's part of the whole Agile manifesto. We need conversations over just process and procedures. And the last piece of it is that sometimes projects do what I call spiral out of control, or have a derailing spiral. This is my stress causes this person's stress, causes that person's stress, causes that person's stress, and all of a sudden we have what I call the raging dark side of personality, I'm taking hostage of our projects and our processes and really just keeping us from being successful. And so we tend to experience the stuff in here. We need to get other people to work on it as well. And what I've done is just made this really multifaceted, because it's about you, the project manager, your executive sponsor and his or her managers, the people that we're actually impacting and what that looks like. And all of those kind of come together in a hodgepodge sort of way. But if you can focus on any of them, be proactive about that focus before it's hard to have that proactivity, you're going to be much better, in a much better spot. I think that's all I have to say. And I left 15 minutes exactly, so follow the process. And I'm bad at that, so that's actually a big point for me. I'll listen for questions if anyone has any. I can probably hear you, and then I can repeat it and get it out to the rest of the group. one here or back beyond? You make them. The question is what does the metric look like? And the metric is just this. We may say, rate this team on a 3, on a 0 to 3 scale in terms of their transparency. Okay, team can rate, and that depends on your scenario.